Hey Shuki, what's up? Shuki, you hear me?
Yeah, I was just getting this set up. Okay. How are you?
Oh, hey Ariel. Hey Rabbi. That's Chavra. Let's go to the mode. It's a hard sugya. It's a hard sugya, and it's also a little bit connected to what Klal Yisrael is going through now. So halachas of when you let a when is a person allowed to allow someone to kill them for Torah mitzvahs, and when does halacha say better to live and not and even if you have to transgress an avera.
Which page are we on?
You are in Ayin Dalad Amud Aleph in the middle of the page. It starts the line starts Kechavim, but the sugya starts Amar Rabbi Yechim Mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok. No, sorry, a little further up. We're holding the two dots that says Al Reidef Achar Behema. So in the Mishnah, there's cases where you're not allowed to kill the roidef. If a person is chasing to be with an animal, to transgress the Shabbos, to worship idols, in those scenarios, you're not allowed to kill the roidef, the person who's running towards doing those things, to stop that person, he or she, to transgress this great avera, even though these are averas that are punishable by death if a person is warned, etc. So basically, avoid the zara, Shabbos, and haroidev achar behema. So here the Gemara starts off like this: Tanya Reb Shimon bar Yochai Omer. Rashbi says like this. He disagrees with the Mishnah. He says, Omer ha'ovid kachavim nitel hatzile benafshay. A person who's worshiping idols. So a person who's watching could stop and prevent him from serving idols, but even if in the event he needs to or she needs to kill that person. Now it doesn't. He doesn't go into the details at what point. Like we learned last sugya, but when it comes to rape, that it's not dependent. It's a question when the pagam happens, right? Pagam, when the blemish happens, the blemish, which is one of the things that a woman gets blemished when a person rapes her, right? So we have boishes, knas, pagam. You have different things that a person tsar. You have things that a person has to pay as fines and as payment. Not all of them are kanasim, not all of them are fines. Some of them are payments for damages. So pagam, if she's already pagam, if it already happened, the act already happened. We learned last week. So it's you're not allowed to kill the person anymore. And the Mishnah says clearly, the Brisa that we learned says that if it happened already, you can't kill the person. I mean, obviously, and it even means if he wants to do it again, he wants to rape a second time. So if the pagam, the blemish happened already, which is what concerns the Torah when it comes to killing a person who's looking to rape a woman or a man, for that matter, is then you can't kill them. But here it doesn't. Reb Shimon bar Yochai doesn't say at what point is avodah zara, meaning to say, because it's not about a pagam, it's about serving. So if there's any additional act that's part of avodah zara midaraisa, biblically, I would assume Rashbi would also say that in such a scenario, you stop the person, you prevent the person, even by having to kill him. Latzila, again, you're saving that person from committing the avera, like even if you have to kill them to prevent them. So he says, what's the reason? He says, Kal v'chomer, he learns it from a Kal v'chomer. Why? What's a Kal v'chomer? Pagam hedyot, nitin pagam hedyot, nitin lahatzile b'nafshay. When it comes to blemishing a regular person, hedyot here referring to a person, whether it's the man who's getting raped or the woman's getting raped. So to prevent the pagam, the blemish, you could kill the pursuer. Pagam gavaya lekol sheken. Here, you're blemishing God by serving idols. So like even more so, that you should be able to that you should prevent it, and even if it means having to kill the person, if that's the only way. Seemingly from Vadebish there, the pagam is constantly, right? You can't say by Hashem that God gets blemished once because there's no time and space. So maybe by Rishim by every act at any time, you could kill the person. You should kill the person if you need to, just to prevent them from serving idols. It doesn't say over here the time when as long as it had. What's Reb Shimon bar Yochai's opinion if it's talking about initially or during or after? Obviously not after, but if, at what point, how far into it are you allowed to kill him? So the Gemara's first question is based on what we learned a few weeks ago, that we learned that you're not allowed to give a punishment. You don't punish someone from a kal v'chomer. Din means a kal v'chomer. Din means based on, if you're blemishing a woman, as bad as that is, but that's mortal. If you're gonna pogay, you're gonna the infinite of Hashem, even more so. But that's still, you're learning for kal v'chomer. There's no mucker. There's no word. We have a mucker in the Torah to teach us that you're allowed to kill the pursuer by the woman. It's a clear pasuk. We brought it down in the case of the rape. If the woman's in the field and there's no one to save her, it means if you could save her, you have to save her, right? So, and even if you have to kill him, so we have a pasuk to teach us that you could kill the pursuer in rape. But there's no pasuk to teach us by idol worship. So, and Rabbi Shimon Yochai wants to learn from a kal v'chomer, but we have a rule: we don't punish based on a kal v'chomer. Now, the obvious question over here is before. So the Gemara answers, what's the answer? The Gemara answers is he disagrees. He says, he holds, yes, you do. If it makes sense, if there's a logical, what's the concern of making of opening up the idea of giving a punishment on kal v'chomer? Kal v'chomer means you have evaluation in your mind. There's no mucker in Torah for it. But you say if there's something kal, light, that the Torah teaches us a certain law, or a certain way to behave, a certain this case, killing someone, right, to prevent the something that's kal, something light that's about to happen. Even more so, something chomer, something severe, like worshiping idols, which is more severe than rape, according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Even more so that you should prevent it up to the case of killing the person. So, but that's a logical argument. That's as long as the logic stands. What happens if you're mistaken in what's kal and what's chomer, right? You think that this is kal. Maybe rape is more chomer. I'm just saying the problem with the kal v'chomer is if there's no marker, there's no source of it in Torah. So then it's a question who decides what's kal and what's chomer. It's not like the Torah tells us this is more chomer, that we have a limud to tell us that. So it's a very risky thing to open up. So therefore, the rabbis say we don't know such thing as punishing someone, killing someone based on a kal v'chomer. There's other things a kal v'chomer, but not as far as killing someone to learn it from a kal v'chomer because it's based on logic. But Rav Shimon Yochai disagrees. He says we do punish from a kal v'chomer. The problem with the challenge that some Mepharshim have over here is that when we say the lashon is the language of the Gemara is that it says ein onshim min hadin. Ein onshim min hadin means if someone, the typical example would be if someone transgresses something, does something already. And the question is, how should we deal with this person? How should Bezdin deal with this person? Let's say we have a Bezdin. Bezdin has to know a person transgresses something. What's the halacha? So if the Torah doesn't tell us, and we want to come and kill the person based on a kal v'chomer, which is a punishment for what they have already done. So then you could say, ein onshim min din. We don't punish someone from din. Over here, we're not punishing anyone. It's not a punishment to kill a person who's pursuing a woman to rape. It's not about punishing. It's about preventing the act of rape, which is the pagam. Same thing over here. The avodah zarah. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is definitely not saying that a person should go out and punish another person for serving idols, because if a person serves idols, the Torah says clearly the person gets put to death by Bezdin. But a regular person without the setting and all the conditions of a Bezdin can't just go and put a person to death unless you have this situations where Moshe Rabbeinu went out and sent people, but that was under Moshe. Moshe was the head of the Bezdin. But just if a person who's walking down the street and sees someone's worshiping idols, to shoot them because you want to punish them, we're not talking about punishment, it's preventing. So the lashon of ein onshim min hadin, there's who's asked, I think there need to be who asked this question. He goes, when you're saving someone from committing a crime for themselves, for their own soul, it's not a punishment, it's a prevention. Like it says, for instance, we learned also, what's the proof? The proof is that even a young child that's saving someone is pursuing someone to kill them, right? You're allowed to kill the child if it's clear that the child's going to kill someone, right? But it's not a punishment. You can't punish a child. A child's not punished. You can't. The Mises Bezdin doesn't apply to a child because he or she's not bar einshin yet. So he's not a person that you can punish. But it's not about punishing; it's preventing. Ad k'dei kach, according to the opinions that you're allowed to do one of the reasons a person's allowed to do an abortion when they're allowed, according to Torah, is based on the fact if the child's a rodef. Of course, the child's not even born yet. How could it be? It's not a punishment. It's a question of prevention. So either way, so he goes into Note Behuda, goes in and gives an answer on that. But that's the basic question. So if the meaning, what they're asking is that yes, you don't have a kal v'chomer for onshim, but maybe you have a kal v'chomer for prevention. Here we're preventing something, and preventing it's a clear big sin, and it's punishable by death. I Judith. We're after the two dots. So why is it called ein onshim b'din? But either way, so that's what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says. Tanya Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Omer, middle of page 74a, 3 in the art scroll. Tanya Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Omer, Oiv David Techav needs lahatzili to save him, prevent him from doing the sin, by killing him. From a kal v'chomer, ma'apagam, even if you have to blemish a hedyot, a regular person, meaning in the case of rape, nitin lahatzili b'nafsha, you could prevent the person from doing that sin of rape by killing them if need be. So too, pagam govaya, if you do a blemish to God by serving idols, like Kolshkin, even more so. Gemara says, do we punish or prevent by learning it from a kal v'chomer? He says, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai holds oin shimin adin. Okay, so this is where we're holding. Now, Tanya, Rebbe Eliezer Reb Shimon, of course, is Rebbe Eliezer, the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the one who went with him into the cave for 13 years. He adds to that not only are you allowed to kill someone who's about to serve idols, preventing them from from transgressing a grave sin, and if you need be, you're allowed up to killing the person. Even if a person is about to desecrate the Shabbos, and the only way to prevent the person from desecrating the Shabbos is to kill the person, you're allowed to, according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Why? Because he holds like his father. That we learn a kal v'chomer from rape, that just by rape you're allowed to kill the pursuer, so too by pursuing to worship idols you're allowed to kill the pursuer. And on top of, once he already establishes that the kal v'chomer teaches us that if someone who worships idols, you're allowed to prevent him from worshiping the idols by a kal v'chomer, he then tags onto that a hekesh. He compares avodas kachavim to Shabbos. And it says 2 times chilul. We'll learn Rashi in a second. That says the word chilul by Shabbos, like chilul Shabbos, and we have chilul by avodah zara, by putting your child through the molech. It says lo sechalal, right? So the word chilul teaches us that just like by preventing idol worship, you could do it as preventing it up to the point of killing someone. So to preventing Shabbos, the desecration of Shabbos, you're allowed to do it up to killing someone. Okay, so that is the addition to the Mishnah. It means our Mishnah and our Brisa that we learned about the past few weeks clearly disagrees with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. But now the Gemara brings on the next two opinions. One Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and on top of that, the opinion of his son Rebbe Eliezer Reb Shimon, that holds you're allowed to even you should prevent a person from desecrating even the Shabbos even if you need be by killing him. I'm just going to learn the Rashi. Savalai ka'avoy. So he says that Eliezer Reb Shimon learns like his father, that he learns that by idol worship, the ein shimin adin, that you're allowed to punish / prevent by killing. Let's tag the word ein shim to mean the act of killing. So to kill someone min adin, even if it's a case of doing it through a kal v'chomer. V'hader, and on top of that, v'hader means on top of that, yalev Shabbos b'chilul ma'avodas kachavim. He learns Shabbos. He compares Shabbos to avodas kachavim from the word chilul, which is a hekesh. It's like it says by Shabbos, mechaleleha ma'isuma. It's a person who desecrates the Shabbos is allowed to be put to death. I mean, should be put to death by Bezdin, and therefore based and so it says the word mechaleha. So we see the severity of Shabbos, and therefore he holds that you're allowed to even kill someone to prevent him. And it also says and it says the word sechal by avodas kachavim. So if by avodas kachavim you're allowed to prevent a person from serving idols by killing them, and it says the word leisachal, and it says mechaleleha ma'isumas by Shabbos. So he compares Shabbos to avodas kachavim. So therefore, this is the third opinion on top of his father's opinion, which is the second opinion, that even to prevent someone from desecrating the Shabbos, one could do it by, if need be, by killing the person. I don't believe that's the halacha, but that's the opinion of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. I'm sure it has a lot to do with their avodas Hashem, because these are severe opinions, because you're talking about there's a lot put it this way, a lot could go wrong with this halacha. It opens up a very, what one person thinks the next person is doing, and then opening up the allowance for certain zealots to behave certain ways. Rape is kind of clean cut, killing someone is kind of clean cut, but avodah zarah and Shabbos, there's a lot of halachas involved, and there's a lot of a person who is behaving in a way of a zealot. So it's a big achrayus, let's put it this way, a tremendous achrayus. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and Reb Elazar Reb Shimon are taking upon themselves to paskin in this psak. All right, let's go further. Now this starts the sugi of Ya'avor val Ya'areg. So Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of, on behalf of Reb Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok, Nimnu v'gomru. It's been decided. I mean, there was a discussion. These are one of those classic cases in the Talmud that has discussions of certain things that were decided in certain places that we know when and where they were decided. Nimnu v'gomru ba'aliyah space nisza belud. In the house of base nisza belud, it's a person. Right, so we have other cases in the Gemara where Beisham Beis Hillel came to visit someone and they decided Allah of halachas. Those are the places that Beis Shammai was counted to be more of a majority over Beis Hillel, and they paskin in a lot of halachas according to Beis Shammai, or a few halachas according to Beis Shammai. We have another case that he was sitting, up in the attic of so and so, and there's a bas call that Shmuel HaKatan is like Moshe Rabbeinu. So there's different times in the Talmud when they were sitting in the aliyah of someone's house, someone's home. In this case, it was decided in the aliyah, in the upstairs, in the loft of the house of Beis Nizza in the city of Lud. And what it was decided in this discussion, that kol aveiros sheb'Torah, anytime it comes to transgression of the Torah, right? So what we've discussed until now is a third party situation, where you have a person who's pursuing another person, or according to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and Reb Elazar Reb Shimon, pursuing to commit a sin. Right? At the end of the day, what's being prevented, even in the case of rape, Rashi rightly says, "Nitzalan benafsham," you're saving the pursuer, not the one who's being pursued. You're saving the rodef himself from committing this crime, he or she. But at the end of the day, there's a third person involved that wants to know what is the halacha if you're in a situation to prevent a person from committing a grave sin, whether it's rape, murder, or other cases of severe averos, according to the different opinions. Are you allowed to prevent the person or not prevent the person from doing it as a third party? Now the question is with the person themselves. The person who's about to be raped, the person who, obviously killing is something else. You have to save with your life. It's kind of, you can't say, I'm not going to murder someone, so I'll let him murder me. But here we're talking about, and the Gemara discusses why, but here we're talking about a situation where the person themselves is being pursued, and how far does the person being pursued have to hold the Torah mitzvahs in the situation where they're being forced to do an avera, they're being forced to commit murder, if in case you're being forced to commit murder, if you're being forced to worship idols, if you're being forced to sleep with another person. And obviously we touch on the classic question of Esther, right? How is Esther allowed to be with Achashverosh? The Gemara says, Reb Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok, Nimnu v'gamru, it's been decided. Ba'aliyah space Nisa belud, in the loft of the house of Nisa in Lud, that kol averos sheb'Torah, any transgression of the Torah. Im oimrim la'adam, if a person is being told by a Gentile, in all cases this is the case where a Gentile is forcing a Jew to desecrate a halacha, Torah mitzvah. Avor, to transgress X, Y, and Z. We'll see what is being discussed. V'al taharag, and I won't kill you. So what would you do? What should you do? If a person is telling you, a goy is telling you, a Gentile is telling you, I'm going to kill you unless you transgress the Torah. So the halacha is they decided in the loft of Beis Nizza that Ya'avor better to transgress the avera, v'al yaharug, and don't put yourself to be killed on behalf of to prevent you allow yourself to be killed better than to transgress it. But they made a provision. There's 3 exceptions to the rule. Chutz, this is the famous thing, if the Gentile says, I will kill you unless you serve idols, Gilai Royes, I will kill you unless you do an act of Gilai Royes, an act of sex that is punishable by death. I mean, to tell a person to sleep with a woman that's not married, not related, they're not married, that's not Gilai Royes. But if in the case of Gilai Royes, where you'd be put to death for it, let's say to rape a married woman or what have you, or to sleep with a married woman, you're being forced, it's not rape, let's say, or to kill someone else. If you don't kill him or her, I will kill you. Right? So in those 3 scenarios, you're not allowed to say, well, I'd better to kill that person than to be killed, or better to sleep with this, to have relations with this in this prohibition, way of a prohibition, than to be killed, or to serve idols than to be killed. Right? So we know these are cases that came up, unfortunately, many, many times in our history. So the Gemara says like this: do you want to say that a person is not allowed to serve an idol? Better to die than serve an idol? Vatani, did you not learn? It says, Omer Rabbi Shmuel says, Minayin, how do we know? She'im Omer leila adam, if we tell if a person's being told by a Gentile, Avoid avodas kachavim v'al taharig, serve this idol and don't be killed. Minayin she'avid v'al yaharig. So how do we know that you should serve the idol, not be killed? Talmud Leimer v'chai behem. We have a pasuk. The pasuk says, those who have the art scroll, it says, "Ushmartem es chukoisai." This is the yesod of this halacha. So it's important to know the pasuk. Pasuk says in Vayikra, "Ushmartem es chukoisai." You should keep my chukim. Ves mishpatai, my mishpatim. Ashayasa oisem ha'adam v'chaybam. That a person should do the mitzvahs v'chaybam and live with the mitzvahs. Based on the conclusion of the pasuk that says v'chaybahem, that mitzvahs are meant to live with doing the mitzvahs, not to die when you do the mitzvahs. You're not supposed to die for doing the mitzvahs. You don't die by keeping my mitzvahs. If you could live by keeping the mitzvahs, you keep the mitzvahs to live. But if you're being threatened with punishment of death, so you have yamas behem. So a person, this is all Rabbi Shmuel, which disagrees on avodas kachavim. Most opinions say Rabbi Shmuel also argues on Gilei Arayos. The question's in the scenario. Everyone agrees that he doesn't agree that you could kill someone to save your life. But let's see. He says, I would think this is talking about quietly. Person walks over to an individual privately, not in public. And Bifrahesia over here means in front of other Jews, not in front of other Gentiles. That's another condition. So as a Gentile has to force a Jew in front of other Jews. Don't desecrate my holy name, and you should sanctify yourself. So this is the pasuk of Kiddush Hashem. But the pasuk of Kiddush Hashem of and you should sanctify my name is only b'frahesia, only public. But if it's private, someone is in a private scenario, and the Gemara is going to discuss what is b'frahesia, what's the number. The conclusion is 10 people. But what's the number of b'frahesia in public? But up until b'frahesia, 9 people and under, according to the conclusion of the Gemara, is private, and therefore it's not the United Mechuyev to do Kiddush Hashem. So that is the machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel. We're turning the page. Rabbi Shmuel and the Chacham, the first Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yitzhadok. That says that the people that they weren't paskening, they were just telling a story what happened in the loft of Beis Nizda. They say that you have to allow yourself even privately to be killed and to serve idols. And Rabbi Shmuel disagrees. So I just want to say before we go further, he says, Rashi says Nizda Shema Ish, it's a person's home. Ya'var v'al Yahrig, a person should transgress and not be killed. Like the pasuk says, you should live with the mitzvahs leish yamas b'hem. Chutz me'avodas kachavim, the common yalefla. We're going to discuss later avodas kachavim. What's the opinion of the rabbis? Why you're not allowed to serve idols even privately? The B'frahesia Rashi says also. We'll explain what's B'frahesia. What's the number? It's 10. Lo yisechalu. So I should learn this Rashi. Lo yisechalu. V'hesya ika chil Hashem. When is there a chil Hashem? Only publicly. B'tzarach lekadis is Hashem, and you have to be do kiddush Hashem in public. Shim senafshel al avos yotzrei, to show, to give your life for your love for your Creator, and that has to be done. Even though the lashon of Rashi shouldn't make a difference if you're giving your life for the love of your Creator. Shouldn't make a difference if you're in public or private. But nevertheless, he says he applies that only in the case of Kiddush Hashem, when you can be Mekadesh Hashem. So the love is not about the transgression, it seems like. It's more about the Kiddush Hashem. It means if the love is not to you love your Creator, so you don't want to serve idols, so it wouldn't make a difference as an individual if I'm in public or not. If I love my Creator, I don't want to desecrate my love for the Creator, whether it's in public or whether or not. But the love of the Creator, according to Rabbi Shmuel, is to make the Kiddush Hashem, not about the transgression, but about the Kiddush Hashem part. Okay, that's an important thing to note. So that's a question. We see there's a machlekes between Rabbi Shmuel and the elders that were in the loft of base in the house of Nissa. So what's their opinion? Rashi says clearly Rabbi Shmuel has a yisoid, has a makar to his ruling. His makar is b'chai b'hem. There's a pasuk clearly says you have to live with Torah mitzvahs, not to die with them. And there's nowhere that it says that there should be a provision for any kind of sin besides shvichas damim, obviously, which we're going to learn why. But otherwise, any kind of sin that's not affecting another person, you shouldn't be able to commit it. So you should let yourself, you should commit it as opposed to being killed. So unless it's a Kiddush Hashem, and that's a special mitzvah. So he says the Omer Inu, these rabbis in the loft, the Omer Rebbe Lezer, they hold like Rebbe Lezer. And what's Rebbe Lezer? The Tanya Rebbe Lezer says, Omer, the pasuk tells us Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad, right? We have to Shem Elokecha. You should love Hashem your Lord, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your moed. We don't know, moed is money. So im, or all your might. So im nemer b'chol nafshecha, if it says you have to love Hashem all the way with all your soul, lama nemer b'chol meidecha, why does it have to add with all your money? Im nemer b'chol meidecha, and if it says with all your might, lama nemer b'chol nafshecha, why does it have to say with all your soul? So the Gemara, so Rabbi Lezer says, im yesh lecha adam, that sometimes you have a person that person's body, so to say, their life, I mean, you say gufa, it means their life is more important than their money. They're ready to lose all their money to stay alive, right? Most people are like that. Therefore, it says for that person who says, you know, if the person says, give me all your money, or that you have a choice, either all your money or your life to sanctify Hashem's name, to show your love. So you say, I'm ready to give him my money. I'd like to preserve my life. So therefore, the Torah says we have to b'chol nafshecha, even you have to give your life for Hashem. But sometimes you have a person that they rather, it doesn't make, you know, obviously you have to understand that kind of mindset, but there are people that would rather die than give away their money. It means if it's a question of giving away all the money, of losing all the money, and keeping their life, they said, you know what, I'd rather, if I have to die and have nothing, if I have to give away all my money and have nothing, you know, take my life, it's worthless. It's not so far-fetched. We do a lot of things that are maybe not consciously with those words, but that we put ourselves at risk. We put our life at risk for earning our living, right? So that's a person's right? My money's worth more than me than my body, right? If a doctor tells you you're overworking, if you continue working like this, you're going to die young, and you say, well, I want to, so then yeah, that's a kind of scenario where a person's money is worth more than their health, right? So where their money is more important than their body, to such a person, where the Torah says that if you have to give all your money, give your money, even though you'd rather not give your money, you'd rather die than give all your money. So clearly we see there. So clearly we see from here, according to the opinion of Rabbi Lezer, when it says means that if it comes to giving your life, it's not about Kiddush Hashem there. It's not part of the pasuk of Niktash li b'seich b'nei Yisrael. So it's a situation of v'hafta, of loving Hashem, an expression of your love for Hashem. That even like it says in Rashi, v'hafta Hashem kecha mashma shalei timreinu b'bayis chavim. Don't switch God for an idol. Love God, not an idol, even if it means your life. So that's the pasuk that they use. Okay, but the question is, Gilai roitz v'shuchas damim. What about how do we know that a person is better to die than to have a forbidden relationship or to kill someone? So Kid Rabbi, this is according to Rabbi. The Tanya, the Rabbi says, Rabbi Omer, it says, Ki asher yakum ishes al re'eyu v'ratzchei nefesh kena davar hazeh. It says we learned by the case of the Nair Me'ursa, we brought down the pasuk that the Torah, remember last time we learned, a few times ago, we learned that there's a long verse that the Torah is talking out loud. That just like the Torah says, just like a person who's going to kill another person, so too is the case of rape. And therefore you can't punish the person being raped. And also we learned from there that you could pursue the rapist. So what are we learning from Ritzech to rape, to Nair Morsa? It's coming really to learn. It seems like it's coming to learn from rape. It's actually teaching the case of murder. We're coming to learn murder from a case of rape. Just like a case of a Nair Me'ursa, a woman who's being raped, you're allowed to save the woman from being raped by killing the rapist. So too, you're allowed to kill a murderer, a person pursuing to murder. Save the person from committing murder, even if you have to kill him. So that we learned that hekesh before, that the pasuk talks long to teach us that really, not that we're learning rape from murder as much as we're learning murder from rape. That murder is, you're allowed to prevent a person pursuing murder to kill them, even if you have to, just like you're allowed to kill the rapist to save the rapist from committing rape. But at the same time, we also learn, this is the second part of the hekesh that we didn't learn about last time. We also learn also, we learn the case of rape. From rape, we learn from murder. That what? Yahrag, just like it's clear, and we'll see in a second why, that if a person is being put to the test and saying murder someone else, or I'll murder you, that you can't kill someone else. So too, when it comes to rape, you should be killed and not transgress the act of murder. Also the case of rape, taharig, better be killed, and don't transgress to rape another person. Or sometimes the questions of machlekes, it's not so simple about this is what we get into Esther, about what is it the same to rape someone or to be raped? But let's just look at it in general, the idea of a forbidden relationship. So Taharik Val Taver. So now the Gemara asks the question, but how do we know at all? What's the logic? Where's the raya? What's the proof that a person's not allowed to murder? How do you know you're not allowed to murder someone if you're going to be murdered? Right? Someone comes to you and says, shoot that person, right? Again, it sounds crazy, but these are cases that happen unfortunately in history, where horrible people like Nazis in all these situations, that they forced these scenarios to people, whether it's a gun or other acts that they had to do to Ritzayach. And of course, rape was done over history, and Avodah Zarah, we know clearly, was over history, right? The Crusades, every time they came, they gathered the Jews, and they said, convert to Christianity, we'll kill you. Of course, the story of this in Spain, all that, etc. So these are not situations that didn't happen. So he says, obviously, evidently, the people in Spain had who to be Saimach on. They had Rabbi Shmuel. So it says, but how do we know? How do you know you're not allowed to kill someone to save your life? So it says that there it's svara. It's not a kal v'chomer. It's a clear svara. They use the word svara. It's not like you're ein shemin adin. You're not punishing the person. You're preventing the person's not going to commit an act of murder based on logic. Dahu da asa, because we have a case. What's the svara? The svara is obvious, right? Why could I kill that person? Why is that person's life worth less than my life? By the way, it's in halacha. The reason why a Jewish person is allowed to, in the case where the Torah allows for abortion, and when you say the person's a rodef, so why don't we say the same thing over here? Why don't we say that why could you kill the child and save the woman's life? So the answer is, I think at the end of the day, the answer is according to Rabbi Shmuel. According to Rabbi Shmuel, the answer is because the child's not alive yet. Had the child been alive, once the child's alive and it comes into the world, and at that moment you have to just choose between the child and the mother. You're not allowed to choose the life of the mother over the father, over the child. Let's just see Rashi. Rashi says svarahu. It's a svara. He says, what's the svara? And here, what's the svara? It's an interesting svara. The svara is basically, it's a hard question, right? A person with clear ability to act on his threat, right? If the threat is questionable, obviously you're not allowed to do it. But we're in the person's in a clear position to act on his or her threat. Whether they're standing, you have two people in the room, you have a gun, you can shoot either one, right? So the chas v'shalom. So the svar is, if you have to decide how do I decide if I'm going to be killed or the other person's going to be killed? Why should I be killed, not the other person? Either one of us are going to be killed. Why should that person live? He's giving me a way out. The other person, he's not giving a way out. Me, he's giving a way out to kill that person. So maybe I should kill that person to save my life. So he says the svar, and the svar is interesting svar. So what's the svara? Why should you push your friend, the other person who you're being told to kill, his life? There's two problems if you kill that person. One is avud neshama, you're killing a person. A person's life is being lost. It means the outcome of your act of killing will be a person will no longer be alive, and a lost soul. The avera, and there's an avera of killing. So you're being told to do two things. One thing is, there's two outcomes of what the person is telling you to do. One outcome is there's going to be a loss of life. And the second outcome is going to be an act of murder. Right? But in your case, there'll be no act of murder, because the Gentile is going to do the act of murder. And you're going to have a loss of life. So it's only a loss of life versus a loss of life and active murder. Loss of life, the two trumps the one. Question obviously to be, what happens in a case where a person, again, in the sick history of the world, it's happened before, where the people say, fight each other to the death, right? So then either one is going to do an active murder, and either one is going to be a loss of life. If two Jews are told, fight till the death. So in that case, you're both not allowed, right? Because then there's less if they're both going to be killed by the person. So then at least there's not going to be the act of murder. Whereas if they fight each other to the death, there's going to be either the act of murder by one or the other. So it says the ikatarti avid neshama v'avera. But if he gets killed by the Gentile, the lika elachad, there's only one avid neshama, a loss of life. Who lo ya'var, and he's not going to transgress the act of murder. When the Torah says la'avar ala mitzvahs mishum v'chai b'hem, this is going according to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says the Torah says v'chai b'hem, so maybe I could live also. I could commit murder if I have to. Mishum the kar be'einav, because it's important in the eyes of God. Einav here, and this is the eyes of God. Neshama shel Yisrael, the life of a Jew. But in the case of murder, even the saif ika ibud neshama, anyways, there's going to be a loss of life. Why can I also commit to active murder? There's going to be a loss of life anyways. Why can I, on top of that, add the active murder? Because v'chai behem says you have to live, but someone's going to die anyways. There's going to be a loss of life anyways. So you want to say that my life is more important than the next person's life? Who tells you? Now, this sounds crazy, but this is exactly what the Israeli government had a vote on last night, right? How do you make these decisions of 65 soldiers died to rescue 50 people? Like, there's all these questions. I mean, when you have to make a decision of how you go, I mean, maybe acts of war is different, and government is different than in individuals. But what Rashi is saying here in the Yisod of the Sfara is you have to take everything into equation. There's a loss of life, and there's no scenario you could say that God likes one person more than the next. That's like, doesn't say children, women versus men. Doesn't say that in Torah. It says clearly over here that who says not getting into the argument, I'm just bringing down the points. Who told you that you're more important to God than your friend? So it's a loss of life is going to happen either way. And then on top of that, you want to commit an act of murder, you can't. It means if you could say, for some reason, that's justified for 65 soldiers to die to save a child, that right? You're saying so the child's life is worth more than the 65 soldiers that die, right? Whatever the number is, or one soldier that dies. So then there's a reason. But if you can't justify one life for the next, so there's no justification. You want on top of that add to that the act of murder. He says, what the Rebbe says, you can't push off, which is the act of murder, because there's no basis to say you're more important than the next person. So what's the question? You want to murder? You're not allowed to do the act of murder, because it's the prevention of life, the prevention of the value of life. The value of your life is just as much as the next person's. And you're not allowed to you're not allowed to do the act of murder. In all the other scenarios, you're going to live. So there's the value of life. But here there's a loss of life. For sure going to happen. That's for certain. And the question is, you want to the act of murder based on preserving your life over the next person's life. There's no marker for that. That's the svara. Again, it seems like very, very raw scenarios, but I'm sure. And yesterday, Rabbanim had a paskin, right? So some people voted based on their conscience. Some people voted on their politics. But officially, certain members of Knesset voted on halacha, right? They said they went to the Rabbanim of Shas, or they went to the Rabbanim of other groups of Torah. Not all the Rabbanim agreed and said that this is something you vote on, that the Pidyon Shvun is an important Pidyon Shvun. But the question is, how many people are going to die, possibly chas v'shalom, from this act? So there's all these questions that have to be taken into account. So the Gemara continues. Let's go a little further. The Gemara continues like this. So therefore, that's the svara. The svara is that you can't kill someone to save yourself. Now he brings a scenario, a story. Dahu asla kamei de Rabba. The person came in front of Rabba. Amr he said li mari de roi. He said, the governor of my town told me. So he tells Rabbah that he's been told by the governor of his town, Zil katle lepleineya, go kill so and so. And if you don't kill so and so, katlina lach, I'm going to kill you. He doesn't know what to do. He's being pursued by the governor to kill someone, and he goes to Rabbah and asks Rabbah, what should he do? Halachically, he came to ask halacha. Imagine you have to ask such a halacha. Again, these are not scenarios that didn't happen often, unfortunately. But Amalei said, Amalei, he told him, Rabbah tells him, allow yourself to be killed, don't kill. Mi yomer, whoever told you, the dama didach sum katafi, dilma dama dahu gavra sum katafi, who said your blood is more red than the next person's? Meaning, what makes you assume, on what basis are you assuming your life is more important to God than his life? Now, bonagid, so we're looking at the story. It seems like we have two people. What happens to that person that has to be killed is a low life, and you're a person, a member of society, a person who lived their whole life, Torah mitzvahs, did everything you're supposed to do, a good Jew. And here's a person that everyone agrees is not on your level. But that Rabbah says it's not. The Rabbah didn't come and say, let's see, how many mitzvahs did you do? How much Torah did you do? How did this person live their life, right? Let's say the other person was doing all kind of averas or all kind of things, or even socially doesn't make a difference. It comes to someone's life, doesn't, he says your blood's not redder than the next person's blood. And therefore, I'm sure it was a hard question, it was a hard psak, but that's the psak. And and again, these are questions that are happening right now, right? Again, not to get into politics, but you have situations where, let's say you do pidyon shvun. Halachas of pidyon shvun are also clear. At what cost, right? You give 1,000 terrorists for one person, and that same person, one of the terrorists is now the head of Hamas and goes and leads a raid that kills over 1,500 people, kidnaps 250. So how do you decide whose blood is redder than the next person? And that's why the Torah says the svara. The svara is, what are we doing? You have to take all emotions out and decide how do the pieces stack up. So over here, there's active murder and loss of life, and so if you get killed, there's no active murder by a Jew, and if you kill, there's an active murder plus a loss of life, and your life is not worth more than the next person's life. And that's a big svara, by the way. The idea that one person's life, I don't know how people decide that. Baruch Hashem, I don't have to make these decisions. It's very hard. And God forbid anyone should be in such a situation. But how do you decide whose life is worth more to go out? I mean, that's a question constantly in war and in security, etc. Okay, let's go a little further. Ki asa rabdimi. All right, let's stop here because it's a new sugya. We're going to go to the next sugya goes into. Now we're going to go into when does everyone when there's a case, there's a scenario let's just do that. We have a few more minutes. Let's do the next few lines. Abdimi came and said, again, you have to remember the timing of when these halachas are being decided. This is the time when the Christians were taking over Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael didn't survive too much longer after Rabbi Yochanan. As Rabbi Yochanan closed the Gemara, the Talmud Sanhedrin was closed. After that, the Jewish life in Eretz Yisrael became unbearable. So all these things were scenarios that they were going to. Rabbi Yochanan said, this idea that a person has yahrig v'al ya'avor, ya'avor v'al yahrig, better to die, better to live than to transgress the mitzvahs, and the question is which mitzvahs is preferesya, not preferesya. All that is when there's no gzeira. It's not a time of gzeira samachas, where the ruling government is looking to squash Judaism. When there's gzeira samachas, he says, but ava b'shas gzeira samachas, when the malchus is looking to systematically squash Judaism, or Yiddishkeit, I feel a mitzvah kala, even if it's the smallest mitzvah, they say you should transgress. Yahrig val yavar. In the case of gzeira malchus, it's not just one individual's coming, but gzeira malchus, then yahrig val yavar, you have to allow yourself to be killed and not transgress. Ki asa ravin am Rabbi Yochanan afilu shlei b'shas malchus. That he says, even when it's not a gzeira of the malchus, this discussion of when a person could live and not is only when you're in the hidden. But it's in public in front of Jews, because the pasuk is v'nikdashti b'toich b'nei Yisrael. It's not the nikdashti. A lot of times people think that the Kiddush Hashem is to goyim, to show the goyim that I'm ready to die for my God. That's not the pasuk. The pasuk says v'nikdashti b'toich b'nei Yisrael. You have to sanctify God's name amongst the Jews. That's why it has to. If you're being taken out to Chas Hashem to the stake, and you're the only Jew in the country, that's not considered b'ferhesia, even if there's many people standing there. B'ferhesia, I feel mitzvah kala yarg val yavar. So my mitzvah kala, what's a light mitzvah? What's a light mitzvah that even in the case of b'ferhesia or in the case of hashma or gzeira samachos, that you have to allow yourself to be killed? So Amar Rabba bar Yitzchak, Amar Rav. This is, you want to know how extreme a mitzvah kala is? It's even a minhag. I feel the lishnuya arkasa the masana, even if you have to change your shoelaces. That there used to be that the Jews wore a certain color shoelace and the Gentiles wore another color shoelace. And he said, like Rashi says, shrei kanal, the shoelace of a shoe. If the Jews tied their shoes one way, and the Gentiles tied the shoes another way, like there's the Jews are more tznua and they do it in a more tznua way. It's not just that the Jews do it out of style, but it's something that represents what a Jew is the way they wear certain clothing. It's not a mitzvah, it's a minhag, but it's a minhag connected not to social, right? That Jews like bagels and lox, right? And if a person says that I forbid you to eat bagels and lox, and the penalty of that, that's not called the Jewish minhag. Minhag is something that's connected to, he says, snuim, something that's a derech yisrael, something that's that connected to being a Jew specifically, not that just socially, is shein kamitzvah minhag b'almei kadosh is Hashem b'fnei chaveirav Yisrael. It's in front of the other Jews. Again, that's b'frehes, it means other Jews. The high b'frehesia midaber b'Yisrael. And here Rashi says when it says b'frehesia, it means Yisrael, like the pasuk says when Tashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. All right, let's stop here. The Gemara is going to go into after that. How much is? Oh, fine, we're ready. It's very finished. No, let's stop here. B'frehesia. Comes up b'frehesia. Top of page 80. Ayin Dal Amud Beis. All right, everyone. Again, I don't mean to mix in politics into the story, but I'm just saying that we see that these are questions that are brought up to halacha even today. How do we decide about making such crucial decisions that could affect people's lives? You know, if you're a parent of a hostage, you have obviously, not that we should chas v'shalom know, but I was sitting yesterday with parents of soldiers that are in Gaza, and they're feeling they have other feelings, let's say, of how we do the math. So I'm saying it's not simple. It's not simple at all. Very unfortunate that we're even having these discussions actually today in 2023 about decisions we have to make about people's lives. Laila Tov, everyone, take care, and Shavua Tov, and good Yom Tov also. Tomorrow night is Yud Kislev. Today's the Yartzeit of the Mittler Rebbe, the birthday of the Mittler Rebbe. Should be a Me'atzei for Klal Yisrael, and should be a Geula Shleima for everyone. That we shouldn't have to make these hard decisions, and we should be Zeicha, become Mashiach. Laila Tov, everyone.